Hi all, welcome back. It is so nice to see you. This channel is still very new and still growing, so any support I get is massively appreciated. Today we're doing a deep dive into Alleria Light and Shadow, the new animation from World of Warcraft. Blizzard has once again knocked it out of the park with this stunning animation. So let's take a closer look at the themes and context this video highlights. Are you sitting comfortably? Good, then let's begin. The scene opens with Alleria alone, sitting by a campfire, surrounded by darkness. Notice how the light from the fire casts her shadow behind her. Far larger than she is, but also, because of the way the rock is angled, her shadow self is looming over her. Notice also how she isn't actually facing the fire, which, you know, is a bit weird. Most people around a campfire sit and look into the flames. That's part of the whole experience. But Alleria is sitting slightly turned away, her eyes shrouded in darkness, as if she's actively avoiding looking into the light. We find out why almost right away when she does turn, her face stern, bracing herself as if this is unpleasant, and for good reason, because the flames erupt.
When we are young, we are taught to revere the light. But when I turn to it, I see only fire.
Yes, Alleria, that would be because you are, you know, looking into a fire. Obviously the flames haven't really erupted. It's just a fancy transition between the scene that we're seeing and Alleria's memories, which we're going to get into in a moment. But it's also our first indication that we're dealing with a bit of an unreliable narrator here. The flames aren't literally leaping out to attack Alleria, but it kind of feels to her like they are.
Fire of pain, of loss, the choices I made.
And again, just about immediately, we can see Alleria's real problem with the light. Light illuminates. Specifically, it illuminates all the things Alleria would prefer not to think about. As she looks into the fire, it lights up 3 memories. Alleria in the forest of Quel'Thalas, her back turned, an orc from when the Horde invaded her home during the Second War, and her younger brother, Lirath Windrunner, who died during that war. Immediately after the third vision, we see Alleria has turned her back to the fire. Again, she doesn't want to look at these visions. She resents the light for illuminating them. In fact, even though she does end up going over the first 2, the vision of Lirath, the one that was too much and caused her to turn sharply away from the light, is never mentioned again. This is something Alleria wants to remain buried deep, a memory so painful that she keeps it shrouded in darkness.
Quel'Thalas. Home. Until the Horde threatened everything.
Back during the Second War, when the Horde invaded Lordaeron, Ando and Lothar, supreme commander of the newly reformed alliance, invoked an ancient oath sworn to his ancestor, King Thoradin of the Arathi, to call upon the High Elves of Quel'Thalas to send aid to the war. Anasterian Sunstrider, High King of Quel'Thalas at the time, did not see the Horde as a serious threat, and so only sent a token force to help. But Alleria, who did think the Horde sounded like bad news, decided to lead some of her rangers to answer the call as well. On the front lines, she learned just how serious a threat the Horde were after all, and soon returned to Silvermoon with a warning that the Orcs had allied themselves with the local Armani trolls. The following passage is from Tides of Darkness, a World of Warcraft novel set during the Second War. "I am Alleria Windrunner," she announced, though she knew most of the council members recognized her. "I have been beyond our borders and have fought alongside the humans in their war, and I have returned to bring you grave tidings, not just for them, but for us." She frowned and studied the men and women before her. The Horde the humans warned of is real and vast and powerful. The bulk of their forces are orcs, but they have other creatures as well, including the forest trolls. That got a reaction. Gasps and angry mutterings. None of the other high elves knew what an orc was. She hadn't herself until she had fought them in Hillsbrad, but they all knew about trolls. Some here, including Anasterian himself, had even fought in the Great Troll Wars long ago, some 4,000 years after Quel'Thalas was founded. At first, the Council of Silvermoon just kind of laughs at Alleria claiming their defenses keep Quel'Thalas safe, and if the trolls want to join the orcs, they're okay with it, as long as the orcs take them far away, leading to this badass scene where Alleria tells the council that the trolls have already invaded Quel'Thalas' forests, and then, as proof, throws the troll's head down in front of Anasterion. It knocks over the wine, and you don't have to be an expert in imagery to understand this image of wine spilling like blood over Quel'Thalas, as figures of orcs from the Horde can be seen looming forebodingly in the background.
My family was sworn to protect it. And protect it we did. When Sylvanas and I fought together, we fought as one.
Sure enough, the war had come to Quel'Thalas. The Winder and her family were known for their ranger generals. Alleria, as the eldest, was supposedly destined for the position, but after she decided to leave, it was Sylvanas who took up the mantle. United again, we see them fighting together against the invaders, along with some other famous faces like Lor'themar Taran, who apparently hasn't changed his outfit in decades. Seriously, Lor'themar, you're married to the most sophisticated elf in Azeroth and you can't change up your look once in a while? Embarrassing. Not demure. Sorry, back to Sylvanas and Alleria. The light changes to darkness as they fight well into the night, and for a moment in this darkness, they almost look happy, before the light comes along and ruins everything. Fire during this particular war was not the elves' friends. The Hordes had enslaved red dragons in the conflict, which were particularly devastating to Quel'Thalas, but we don't actually see them here because we're not seeing events as they played out. We're seeing how Alleria remembers them, and due to some things that have happened since, Alleria's memories here quite blatantly reference the Sylvanas Warbringers short.
But the conflict here was growing, pulling my sister and I apart.
Catapults that shoot fire, launched by a horde, raining fire down upon an elvish homeland, and, just in case you missed the obvious point being made, a burning tree. In this memory, it's the fire, the light, that drives the sisters apart, the branch falling from that burning tree that literally burns the bridge between them. A whole lot is being said here. When Sylvanas died and became a banshee, she crossed a bridge, literally death, that divided her from her sisters, but it was the burning of Teldrassil that really blew up that bridge completely, destroying almost any hope for a lasting reunion, a fact that makes Alleria's decision to leave Sylvanas here hurt even more.
How can you leave? You would choose the Alliance over Quel'Thalas, our home!
It's not just our kingdom at risk. If the Horde isn't beaten back, others will fall. I have to go.
But you're abandoning your family.
I am doing this for our family.
And here we see the most obvious suggestion that Alleria's memories aren't really that reliable, because this scene where Sylvanas is angry at Alleria for leaving didn't actually happen. At least, that's not how Sylvanas remembers it. Here's the scene from her perspective in the Christie Golden novel Sylvanas. I suppose this means you cannot stay, Varys said. Alleria shook her head regretfully. It seems whenever my path leads me here, it leads me away just as quickly. Our family has experienced the cruelty of the Horde, but we must not allow others to suffer that fate if at all possible. There is no time to linger if Lordaeron is to have any warning at all. Sylvanas understood. She was the only one of them who had seen Larissa and Virath, their parents, where they had fallen. Her younger siblings had only seen the corpses after they had been cleaned, their limbs arranged peacefully, the sight of grievous wounds concealed by formal robes, and perhaps a touch of illusion magic to soften the blow further. No, she would not wish what she had endured on anyone. We must follow the Horde before they elude us again and have a chance to regroup, Alleria said. Go swiftly then, sister, Sylvanas said, and the two embraced. And I mean, granted, Sylvanas is fully capable of being an unreliable narrator herself, but even so, Alleria remembering Sylvanas accusing her of abandoning their family, but the novel showing Sylvanas specifically understanding Alleria's leaving to protect their family, is a pretty extreme contrast.
I lost a sister that day. Had I known that my actions would curse Sylvanas to her fate, would I have chosen differently?
As I said, Alleria was meant to become Ranger General, but because she decided to leave to serve in the war against the Horde, that position was passed to Sylvanas. As Ranger General, Sylvanas would go on to face Arthas, the Lich King, when he attacked Quel'Thalas during the events of Warcraft 3. It was Arthas who killed Sylvanas and raised her as a Banshee. In other words, if Alleria had stayed home, she might have been the one to face Arthas to become the Banshee Queen. So when Alleria lays down her quiver of arrows, the symbolism is once again about as strong as it can be. Sylvanas referred often to her Dark Rangers as arrows in her quiver. It's how a Ranger General sees things. Even as Alleria asks herself if she would have chosen differently, knowing what would happen to Sylvanas in her place, she quietly reaffirms her decision by physically setting aside her quiver now. Unspoken, the memory Alleria won't face is that image of Lirath that we saw. Long before Sylvanas faced Arthas, Lirath died not long after Alleria left Quel'Thalas. Had she been there to protect him, would he have survived? It seems she's unwilling to ask this particular question.
I left my home to fight this war to the end. I had no idea how far away that fight would take me. Yet despite the war, I found my life's true love, Turalyon. And together we fought side by side, until we became three.
By now, Alleria is fully facing the fire again, gazing into its flames. She is no longer hiding from her memories, but is instead facing them head-on before putting them aside, represented by her physical removal of pieces from her classic green outfit. Alleria's thoughts are turning to her husband and son, the family that she made. This time, her cloak represents the comfort, warmth, and protection this family represented to her. Throughout the cinematic, Alleria has focused on the destructive and harsh side of fire, but it can also, of course, represent warmth and comfort. When a ball of fire falls between Alleria and Turalyon, they stand firm. Unlike the fire that physically tore her and Sylvanas apart, Alleria and Turalyon's love kept them together. Specifically, Turalyon reframes the cosmological force of light for her so that it is not so destructive, but that warmth and comfort wasn't able to last.
But beyond the boundaries of our world, our enemies grew powerful.
You can make your stand here. Why risk marching into the unknown?
Our only choice is to take the fight to them before it's too late. Should we not succeed?
I will keep him safe. Just come back.
We'll return before you know it, Eritor.
Had I known that I would not see my son again until he was a man himself, would I have still left?
Alleria and Turalyon left with an alliance expedition through the Dark Portal to stop the threat of the Horde once and for all, not only for the sake of Azeroth, but other worlds as well. Again, we see Alleria's sister asking her to stay behind, this time Verisa. As Alleria holds Arator, he clings onto her cape, and for a moment we catch that glimpse of the happy family, lit by the warmth and comforting side of the light, before Alleria hands Arator over, and we see, for the second time, how Arator, crying, held onto Alleria's cape enough that it had to be physically pulled away from him. Once again, light is visually positioned as the thing parting her from her loved one. This time, the light of the portal that she and Turalyon left through. We are also seeing more purposeful use of light and shadow. Arator's hand is fully bathed in the light, but Alleria's cape is mostly in shadow. When they hold hands, Turalyon's hand is lit by the light, but Alleria's is almost completely cloaked in shadow. It's all very Destiny.
I had given everything for this fight. The only thing left to give was myself. There was no other way. In order to defeat the darkness, I had to embrace it. So embrace it I did. Turalyon, who had known me, loved me, fought beside me, now saw me differently.
What have you done?
The shadow, it saved us.
No. I would rather have died than see you fall to evil.
Turalyon didn't understand, but I could not fault him. If I had known that embracing the shadow would push him away, would I have sought another path?
When this animation began, Alleria was recognizably in her classic green-themed outfit that she's been known for. Green was always her color. When Alleria broke up a necklace her mother had given her into 3, one for each Windrunner sister, she kept the emerald for herself. But as we've seen, Alleria has been almost ritualistically setting pieces from her old outfit aside, a recognition of the pieces of herself that she sacrificed over the years. It was always the Legion behind the war, and in their effort to defeat them once and for all, Alleria and Turalyon spent 1,000 years out of time aiding the Army of the Light. Turalyon, for his part, fully embraced the light, even becoming infused with its power, but Alleria never quite followed. Instead, she grew interested in the shadow. Time and time again, Alleria has shown herself to prioritize victory in the war above everything else, and even though she was strictly forbidden from dabbling in the void, she kept herself open to it, arguing that the void may be able to succeed in places where the light failed. She was proven right during the battle that we see playing out here. The light failed. Alleria and Turalyon were going to die. And so, Alleria accepted the whispers promising to help. Though Turalyon and Alleria did spend time working together again after this, and were even able to touch each other, providing he wasn't channeling the light while she was channeling the void, Alleria clearly sees this moment as the catalyst that would break apart their relationship, the thing that drove them apart. And, once again, we can see how this memory was too painful. Even though the fire is dying, Alleria has turned her back fully on the light.
No. All of the things I did for a reason. War is sacrifice. And I have sacrificed everything to protect those I love. To keep them safe. And if it takes sacrificing myself to protect our world, I will not hesitate. I am a soldier of Azeroth.
All this time, Alleria has been asking herself if she would still have made all the same decisions, knowing what would happen, knowing all the pain, guilt, and regret they would bring. And her answer is she would. Alleria has put aside her old armor that represents not only who she was, but the people and relationships that defined her. But the last time we saw her wearing that outfit, before this animation I mean, was during the Hunt for the Harbinger questline. In this questline, Xal'atath showed Alleria a memory of the exact scene we've just seen play out, where Turalyon said he'd rather die than see her fall to evil. In Xal'atath's version, however, Turalyon attacked and killed Alleria.
I would rather have died than have you fall to evil.
I know. And yet my fate has not changed.
Oh, your greatest regret. Let's bring it to life, shall we?
No! This isn't what happened!
The void tends to distort memories, specifically to make loved ones seem angrier than they were, something worth keeping in mind considering those discrepancies between Alleria and Sylvanas' memories. Alleria ends up facing the false Turalyon, but she is unable to bring herself to kill him, even knowing it isn't him. Locust Walker has to do it instead.
I can't do it!
Alleria, I see your weak heart. You cling to them still.
Begone from this place, Zalatath!
Very well. I'll not overstay my welcome.
Alleria is bothered by her own reaction, and for good reason. Her enemies have used illusions of Turallion against her before. Once, a demon disguised himself as Turallion, and Alleria didn't hesitate to kill him. But now, even a false image of him makes her hesitate. Locust Walker has warned her before that her attachment to Turallion is a weakness, and with this, it seems like he's being proven right. What's worse, Zalatath has witnessed this moment of weakness. In the conversation after this fight, Locust Walker reveals the startling news that the people of his home planet of Koresh also saw radiant visions, very much like the ones our people of Azeroth are seeing, shortly before the planet was consumed by Void Lord Damentius. The threat couldn't be more serious, so Locust Walker counsels Alleria, once again, to let go of her greatest fear, endangering her family.
You must find a way to stop her.
Me? Look, she knew exactly how to hurt me. I don't think I'm the one to.
Yes, she knew your greatest fear is endangering your family. But you must let go of that fear. Embrace who you truly are.
I know who I am.
Do you? You are unbalanced. You must master your unique nature, Alleria. If you cannot, then Azeroth is already doomed.
After that, Alleria decides to leave, reasoning that she's a danger to us all. And so we see what's happening in this animation. Alleria is taking Locust Walker's advice. Her fear of endangering her family is her greatest weakness, one her enemy knows, and so she removes them one by one along with her armor. No longer fighting by their side as she once did, she once again makes the choice to leave them behind so that she can fight to protect them. Her new look is an indication that she has looked into who she truly is, apart from her family, and embraced that. Alleria is, first and foremost, a soldier. She's also switched the arm that she keeps armored, which, I don't know, to me seems like it would be really irritating at first. Apparently this arm makes more sense with the whole having to use a bow thing, but it still just seems like a change that would completely throw me, though to be fair, I'm no soldier. She seems to be doing fine, so forget I said anything. Either way, I want to take a moment here just to appreciate the way Alleria uses her bow in combat. The traditional way, yes, but she'll also just grab it and beat you with it physically when the moment calls for it. Badass, but also I'd really like to know when I can do that as a hunter. Blizzard? Clearly this technique has been around for ages and at least rangers seem to know it, so any day now, right? The line, "I have sacrificed everything," is of course a reference to Illidan.
And I have sacrificed everything.
I sacrificed everything.
Both started out fighting a war that threatened their people but ended up taking on entire cosmological forces. Both embraced dark and dangerous powers to achieve their goals, making decisions that others could not always understand and that would eventually drive a rift between them and their loved ones. Both ultimately realized that they would have to stand alone. For better or for worse, Alleria is a hero. Her son, Aratar, looks up at her statue because that's how he's experienced her specific style of motherhood. Absent, cold, but only to keep him safe, to make it possible for him to grow into the adult he's become. It's worth mentioning that every parenting style ends up having an effect. When you're raised looking up at statues because your parents made sacrifices to keep your world safe, well, in their most recent meeting in the short story A Whisper of Warning, Alleria begged Arator to stay out of the coming war. But when has Alleria herself ever listened to similar arguments? Khadgar told me there are signs, she continued in a hushed voice. Potence. The artifact I'm chasing heralds some new danger, an enemy lurking in the shadows. A battle is coming, and I must beg you, as your mother and as a former Ranger General of this very kingdom, stay out of the fight. Arator stopped mid-stride, his brows drawing down. You can't be serious. I've never been one for humor. All I've ever wanted for you was a life of peace away from the battlefield. That's why I left you with Verisa. That is why I told you so long ago that war was not glory. Defending Azeroth is my calling. It need not be yours. The warmth in her son's eyes winked out. He looked every one of his years then, a man grown and hardened to battle. Listen, mother, you may not know me as well as you would like, but you must know I would never abandon my duty. I would never shirk my responsibility and leave the risk to my fellow knights. Arator is a paladin, like his father, but as the shadow falls across his face, we are reminded that he is equally his mother's son. Arator is literally a child of light and shadow, a prophecy that the light once believed was about Illidan, but as Alleria herself knows, the light is sometimes wrong. Basically, Alleria might believe she's left her family behind to be protected, but she has this tendency to forget that they have agency as well. Sylvanas may have become Ranger General in Alleria's place, but everything she did, even accepting that position, was still her own choice. Turalyon may not have understood Alleria's decision, especially initially, but he's been shown time and time again to be pretty accepting of it. It's Alleria who's been keeping her distance from him, not the other way around. When Arator asks after her, Turalyon only replies, "You know I love her dearly, but your mother can't be contained." So yeah, mostly Turalyon just seems to be trying to respect her need for space. As for Arator, he's already made it clear he has no intention of avoiding the coming war. Locust Walker has convinced Alleria her family is her weakness, but that framing forgets that every one of them, even Arator, is strong in their own right. Will her decision to put aside her family to try face what's coming along prove to be Alleria's path to victory against Xal'atath? Or will it turn out to be as ill-conceived as this downgrade of a classic outfit? Only time will tell. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. You can also support me on Patreon, and really the fact that anyone is willing to spend their own hard-earned money to do so just blows me away. You guys are incredible. But for now, that is my final video before the launch of the War Within, so I'll see you in Khazalgar.